In the past 2 days of our seminar, I'm sure that you are already starting to learn about the relevant health conditions that we have introduced to you. Remember, at day one, we had double burden of disease. We discussed about the condition that people are facing right now, and that is both infectious disease and the non-communicable diseases. And then last night, we talked about heart disease. And tonight we'll be talking about hypertension and the salt shaker. So you would realize I already introduced to you hypertension at day one. And hypertension is also a risk factor for people who are suffering from heart disease. So tonight we'll be talking more and we'll be digging much more about hypertension. Now, if you remember this slide that I showed you during the first day, you will see that hypertension is included among the top 5 killer, causes of death in the country. And if you will see, even in the present condition now with the current pandemic that we are facing, you will see that people with hypertension are having higher fatality rate in cases like they will be infected with COVID-19. So again, you will see this is published by the Manila Times in 2018. 1 in every 4 Filipinos are already hypertensive. And I want to go back to this slide again. You will see that over 12 million Filipinos are already hypertensive. And this is a data from 2017. Unfortunately, you will see here in this study that over half of this population who are affected with hypertension are in fact unaware that they have hypertension. One reason is that Filipinos are not really used to going to their doctors for routine or screen checkup, right? So unless they really feel bad, then that's the time they visit their doctors. So here, more than half of Filipinos who are hypertensive are not diagnosed with hypertension. They are not totally aware that they have the condition already. And then unfortunately, among those who are diagnosed with hypertension already, more of them are actually not compliant with the maintenance medications that their doctors are providing them. Okay, so that is the case in the Philippines right now. And the problem is that the control of hypertension is not that successful, basically because of the non-compliance among patients. And then diagnosis is another factor because, again, more than half of this population are not diagnosed yet, even if they have the condition. Okay, and then the largest factor is that it is really huge lifestyle factor that is contributory to the development of hypertension. Okay, so I want to share you this study. Actually, this is published in 1929. Now, you will see here that people in this area in Africa who are consuming mostly plant-based diets, so basically legumes, vegetables, fruits, and then greens, you will see here that there is no relation between age and their level of blood pressure. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that in those areas of the world, in this study, as early as 1929, they were able to establish that in this population or in this community, even if you're older, you get over 60 years old, you're not expected to have hypertension. So unlike those of the Europeans and Americans, Western countries, and of course the Western influenced countries like us, Philippines, the older we get, the higher our blood pressure goes up. So you will see here on the table, you will see the difference, right? Now, another study here at the this is again published at the Lancet. This is in the rural China. You will see here in this study, again, this is clearly telling us that there is no tendency towards an increase in blood pressure with age. So regardless of the age, the blood pressure, the average blood pressure or the mean blood pressure they have in those population is just around 100/70. Okay, so what's the take-home lesson in that study? So you will see that in both studies, meat consumption is not actually the main practice in those populations. So that means it's not occupying the center of their plates. Yes, they still eat meat, but generally they consume them during special occasions, say, for example, during weddings and during celebrations. Now, here's another study that will tell us that the more we dwell into plant-based consumption, the lesser we take animal-based products, the lesser the chances or the risk of developing hypertension. Like in the figure that you can see here now, you will see here that strict vegetarian has the lowest blood pressure compared to those who are lacto-vegetarian and compared to other groups included in the study. Now, this is really interesting because there are really pre-industrialized communities that are only consuming less than 500 milligrams of salt a day. So you will find them in Samoa, Africa, New Guinea tribes. So you can also find this in Australia and other places as well. And there is a total absence of hypertension. So it really has something to do with the salt intake. Again, for us people living in industrialized areas, we consume about 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams salt per day, and you will see that hypertension is one of the top killer diseases, as what we have presented earlier. So I want to always remind people, especially those who are joining us in our seminar, you should try and start somehow to count the salt that we're taking every single meal. Yes, it's hard, but it's really good to have a total awareness on the salt intake that you are having every single day, especially if you already have hypertension or if you have the risk for hypertension. It's always nice to read the labels because oftentimes people will just pick, food and then, they just consume it without even reading the nutritional facts at the back. So now I'm sure you're starting to appreciate how important it is to be aware of how much sodium we're taking, how much fat are we taking. Yesterday, we already discussed about saturated fat. And now I'll be emphasizing more on that because fat intake has something to do with hypertension at the same time. That's why yesterday we started out introducing to you atherosclerosis, because any patient who has atherosclerosis increases their risk as well to develop hypertension. So just imagine you already have hardening of the arteries, so there is narrowing of your blood vessels already, and then here you're starting to take a lot of salt, and so it increases the blood volume, so it will further increase your blood pressure. So those are the things that are contributing to increased blood pressure. Okay, so we know that hypertension increases the risk of developing stroke. So in regards to stroke, we have ischemic stroke or hemorrhagic stroke, right? So looking at the prevalence of stroke in the Philippines, in fact, stroke is the third cause of death in the Philippines, with over 300 Filipinos who are at risk of having stroke every single year. Now, it's really nice if you will try to evaluate or assess yourself and then try to monitor yourself as well in case like you already have hypertension or you already have episode of increased blood pressure. So here in your screen, you will see the normal values for our blood pressure, and you will also see here some of the measurements that you needed to know, so that somehow you will see if you are at pre-hypertension level, or are you at stage 1 hypertension or stage 2 hypertension. So you can take a screenshot of this and then get yourself evaluated. I'm sure you have health centers around you so that you can somehow get your blood pressure and evaluate yourself. Okay, so we need at least two findings of increased blood pressure for us to diagnose patient with hypertension. So if you see that you have repeated findings of increased blood pressure, we really encourage you to visit your physician so that you can start working on your condition. Again, with the guidelines that I am showing you right now in your screen, what you can see here is that the first intervention for hypertension is lifestyle modification. And so that's the goal in our seminar today, and in the next days to come is for you to know how do you modify your lifestyle so that you can help yourself and you can also help your physician as they take care of your health concerns. All right, so remember, even if we provide you the pills, the medicine will just control your condition, but our goal here is for you to know the cause so that you can address the cause of your condition. So in this case, in hypertension, we already discussed about salt, and so at least you know which way to go by now. So again, looking at the blood pressure level, our goal here is for you to have a blood pressure of less than 120 over less than 80 millimeters mercury. So the higher it gets, the higher the risk for developing the complications of hypertension, okay? So our goal again is to have a normal blood pressure. So now let's talk about some of the causes of hypertension, because we have three basic causes of hypertension. So we have two organic causes. First is kidney disease. Any person with kidney disease may have the risk of developing hypertension, and vice versa as well. Because if you have uncontrolled hypertension, say you're diagnosed with hypertension and you don't do anything about it, it's not controlled for the longest time, then that can also result to kidney disease. Okay, so in another cause of hypertension is tumor. So this is least common, but it does happen. So some patients who may have tumors in the adrenal glands, that also may result to increased hypertension. But the most common cause of hypertension, which covers about 90 to 95% of people with hypertension, we call it essential hypertension. So basically, there's no specific organic cause. So it's not caused by kidney disease, it's not caused by any tumors, but it is likely caused by lifestyle factors that is contributing to increased blood pressure. So now we know that lifestyle has something to do with it, and it is about 90 to 95% of the case. And so this is really the right time for us to learn on how to get rid of hypertension. So just imagine, again, this is chronic condition. Some people may not actually appreciate that they have hypertension. The reason why they don't go visit their doctor and get themselves tested, right? So that's why the statistics, the number is telling us that more than half of these people with hypertension in the Philippines do not know their condition because they don't get themselves assessed. So that's the problem. That's why our goal here in our seminar, this health seminar, will make you aware that somehow you needed to evaluate yourself, you needed to assess yourself, especially for those who have family history of hypertension. So going back to the lifestyle factors that may contribute to the development of hypertension, basically we'll be going back to intake of salt, and then to those food intake or lifestyle factors that may increase the development or enhance the development or initiate the development of atherosclerosis. So yesterday, I already introduced to you how are you going to start the initiation of fatty streaks in your blood vessels, right? So yesterday we specifically talked about the blood vessel in the heart because it's heart disease that we were talking about last night. But today, this is atherosclerosis in your blood vessels around the body. So this can happen in your brain, this can happen in the rest of the blood vessels, your arteries in particular around the body. So we introduced to you the different types of fats, right? So if you remember, we have the polyunsaturated fat, we have the monounsaturated fat, and the saturated fat. And we gave emphasis to the saturated fat. And here I want to share you the golden rule that we have in terms of harmful fats. Okay, so here first is the primary harmful fats are the saturated fats and the trans fats. You know, in the United States right now, the food industry are not allowed anymore to include trans fats in their food production. But unfortunately, in the Philippines, there's no such law that is implementing like that in the United States. But it's good that doctors are now have a campaign on this. And so as a general rule, we have here saturated fats coming from food should be minimized or eliminated as much as possible. And then as a general rule, trans fat foods should be eliminated. So how do you know if your food has saturated fat, or how do you know if your food has trans fat? So again, you go back to the nutrition facts. You can clearly see there saturated fat. You will see the percentage, how much of it you're taking in every serving of that packaged food that you're eating. And then of course the trans fat. You just have to be careful because trans fat is hiding in many names. Oftentimes, they don't use trans fat, but sometimes they use hydrogenated oil or partially hydrogenated vegetable oil. So, all of those terminologies would only mean trans fat added in your food. Okay. So, this time, it's really easier to get rid of these types of fats if we eat mostly whole foods, right? Because the more processed the food is, the more packed the food is, the moment you see nutritional facts at the back of the food, even if this is vegan food, okay? That's why we always mention here whole food plant-based diet, because there are many vegetarians and there are many vegans who may also develop hypertension, who may still have heart disease, or who may still develop cancer, basically because vegan doesn't totally mean you're eating healthy. All right, because they can be eating a lot of processed food at the same time with lots of trans fat and saturated fats at the same time. Okay, so here in this slide, yesterday I also introduced to you the harmful saturated fat and the neutral saturated fat. But I want to share you this figure here just to let you know how much of saturated fats you are eating in every type of meal. So in this table here, I want to share with you some of the types of food that we usually eat or we add in our food preparation. So the rule here is very simple. The more harmful saturated fat content, the lesser it should occupy your table. All right, so the lesser it should occupy your plate, I mean. So say, for example, you will see here that palm oil is more of the myristic acid and the palmitic acid, and they are harmful saturated fat. Yes, they have lauric acid at 1.1% and then stearic acid at approximately 5%, but they are more of the harmful saturated fat. So the moment we use palm oil, we just have to think, and we just have to remember that we have to use them scarcely, or maybe get rid of them if you already have heart disease or if you already have atherosclerosis, which increases your risk to developing hypertension. Okay, so again, going back to another cause of hypertension, which is sodium or your salt intake. It's really amazing to know that a lot of people are not aware where do they get sodium. So basically, salt is not only the source of sodium, all right? So they thought it's just the salt shaker that's causing their increase of hypertension because of their salt intake. Not really. So here, every time we consume processed food, basically they contain a lot of salt or sodium already, right? So aside from the salt, they already have soy sauce. It has food additives as well that may contain sodium at the same time. Now, you'll be surprised that bread is one of the highest source of sodium in our diet. Yes, it's bread and then pastries, because basically they use baking powder and they also use baking soda, So both baking soda and your baking powder also contain sodium. So like, for example, your baking powder may have over 400 milligrams of sodium in every teaspoon, and your baking soda has higher sodium intake, over 1,000 milligrams of sodium per teaspoon. And that doesn't even count the sodium that you can find from other added ingredients, in pastries. So that's only pastries. So remember, that's only for snack maybe, or for dessert. But how about your main course during the meal, right? So you have your salt coming from the salt shaker, and then you have your sodium coming from the soy sauce maybe, and then you also have sodium coming from the processed meat that you got from out of the can, and then you prepare it in the food, and then you added salt. So just imagine how much salt we are taking every single day. And if you already have hypertension and if you already have heart disease, our goal here is for you to consume less than 2,300 milligrams of sodium every single day. And 2,300 milligrams is just a teaspoon of salt. Now, people are consuming a lot of salt, specifically Filipinos. Filipinos they really love salt. Filipino dishes is always rich in salt and then rich in oil, like other Asian countries as well, right? So, but if you're already suffering from hypertension, you have already heart disease. So basically, it's good to know that we needed to consume less of the sodium every single meal. Now let's go to other causes of hypertension. One here, very remarkable, is in fact your low potassium intake. Now, potassium is really found in many types of fruits and vegetables. So basically, if we eat a lot of whole food, plant-based diet, we can never go wrong about our potassium because we can get enough amount of potassium. Now, another cause that we know for hypertension is in fact obesity. So obesity is a risk factor for many types of chronic diseases, including diabetes, heart disease, and hypertension, and of course, cancer as well. Now, our goal here for patients with hypertension is basically for them to lose some of those excess weight because there is a direct proportion in terms of the decrease of their weight with the decrease of blood pressure. Okay, so that's one good news here. And the moment you also reach your ideal body weight and your BMI is also ideal, then it's not only hypertension that is being addressed here. In many patients who also have hypertension and then diabetes or heart disease at the same time, those conditions are also addressed. Okay. Now, another cause for hypertension here again is your arterial plaque. So we have discussed that yesterday, and so that's how important it is to have a clean blood vessel. Unfortunately, with the research that I have showed you yesterday, you will realize that as early as childhood, we are starting to develop the plaques, the fatty streaks in our blood vessel. And then I don't know how old are you now, and just imagine and assess yourself how much of the plaques that you were able to develop in your blood vessels by now. Okay, so other causes that we can address in terms of talking about hypertension is the lack of physical activity. And so we really encourage people to avoid sedentary lifestyle. You know, even for stroke patient, if they already experience stroke, we still highly encourage them to increase their physical activity. And so for patients who have who have the risk of developing a hypertension, we encourage them to increase physical activity because we can really see a direct link of weight gain, with sedentary lifestyle. And we already discussed earlier that increased weight or overweight also increases the risk for hypertension. All right, so other causes includes smoking and of course alcohol. Basically, smoking increases the damage on our arterial wall, so it enhances the narrowing of our blood vessel, and so we don't like that for patients with hypertension. And then lastly, I want to talk about estrogen here. This is a hormone that is found in birth control pills. Now, there are patients who are taking birth control pills who are starting to develop hypertension at the same time because some of those may be salt retainer. So you can consult your physician about this if you are already suffering from hypertension so that they can do some modification at the same time. All right, so now we know the causes. Let's talk about the remedy. What can you do to help yourself to get rid of hypertension? Of course, you just have to remove those causes. Increase intake of your whole food. You can find it from grains. You can find it from legumes, fruits, and vegetables. We're not saying that you cannot eat the favorite foods that you've been eating before, but in the studies that I had showed you earlier, if they are not occupying the center of your plate every single meal, then that's not going to do you so much harm again. So it can be taken if you wish so, but it should not be occupying the center of your plate every single meal. You may take or you may eat your meat maybe if you can still get rid of it occasionally. So again, the more you get into whole food plant-based diet, the lesser your risk of developing hypertension, and it's complication. So here I wanted to share with you some of the very simple recipes that maybe you can start at home. So these are coming from Culinary Medicine. Basically, yesterday I introduced to you what culinary medicine is all about. So this is a combination of cooking and the science of medicine. So there are a growing enthusiast of in culinary medicine. This is a group of nutrition dietitians, coaches, and then physicians who are helping patients to sustain healthy dietary patterns and healthy eating. So here I want to show you some of the recipes that we are using for patients with hypertension. I hope you will learn something from it, and maybe you can start it from home. Again, I hope you learned something from what we have discussed tonight about hypertension and the salt shaker. Of course, it's not only from the salt shaker, and it comes from many, many different food preferences that we eat every single meal. All right. So I'm inviting you to join in our upcoming sessions again. So we have much more to learn about taking charge of our health, taking care of our health.
Hello everyone, today we are gonna be making mushroom wrap, and we are also gonna be learning the main or the most important cooking technique in culinary medicine, which is the dry saute or no oil saute. So now we have our ingredients here. So we have onion, garlic, and then for our sauce we have calamansi, maybe 1 tablespoon of calamansi, 1 teaspoon of liquid aminos or soy sauce. We have 1/4 cup of water, and we have cumin to flavor the dish. And also we have 1.5 cup of mushrooms. You can use any kind of mushrooms. This time I am using shiitake mushrooms. And then we have our yellow bell pepper. If you have the regular ones, the red ones, it is also okay. And then we have our cauliflower florets, and it is a cup of cauliflower florets. And then we have the sauce that Doc April recently made, the cashew carrot sauce. So we have our pan here, and then we heat it with medium-high heat. So at this point, it is also very important to know the temperature of your pan. So we are aiming to that medium heat of the pan. So we are going to be conducting the mercury ball test using 1 teaspoon of water. So the idea is to just put 1 teaspoon of water into the pan to know that the pan is on medium-high heat. So if it is on low heat, the water will stay on the pan. If the heat is too high or it is too hot, the pan is too hot, the water will immediately evaporate. We're aiming to make tiny balls of water, just like mercury balls, running around your pan. So that's how we know that our pan is on medium-high heat. Now we are adding our water, just a teaspoon of water to test our pan. So this is what we are looking for. Tiny balls of water running around your pan. So if your pan is already there, just let it evaporate. And then once it already evaporated, or just like this, just a tiny amount of water left, you can now add your onions. So it is really important to put onion first, since garlic burns out easily. So you just have to run around the onions in your pan just to have an even cooking. So at this point, your onion is actually sweating. So it is sweating its natural oils. So that's why you can notice that the onion is not sticking to the pan. So once your onion is slightly brown and translucent, you can now add your garlic. So the technique here is to make sure that you you saute or you run around your garlic and onion to have an even cooking. So here you can see that it started to caramelize and the bottom of the pan is browning. Now this is what we call the deglazing, or it is basically just adding the liquid to collect all the flavors into your pan. And at this point, you can now add your mushrooms. So as you can see, even though we did not use oil, the dish that we're cooking has its shine, or quite oily, because basically vegetables have their own oils, natural oils. Then add your bell pepper. And we are almost done. You just have to wait until our cauliflower is cooked and heated through. And now our no oil sauteed mushroom is already done. We can now proceed to wrapping our mushroom. So first, we add our lettuce. And then our filling, our no oil sauteed mushrooms. So if you can notice, it is quite oily even though we did not use any oil. And then some cucumbers. Tomatoes, and then for a little bit of sweetness, our mangoes, and then lastly our cheese that is made of carrots and cashews. So there you have it, our no oil sauteed mushroom in a wrap. So you can enjoy this with your families, and it is really healthy because it doesn't contain any oils, and it is low in sodium, it is low in fat. I hope that you will try this recipe at home. So stay safe and stay healthy.
Good morning, everyone. Today you're gonna learn how to make your vegan mac and cheese. So I know that everybody loves cheese. Cheese can be so yummy, but cheese can be so unhealthy also. It has a lot of saturated fat, it has cholesterol, and a lot of salt, sodium. Did you know that just 1 cup of your regular mac and cheese already contains 1/4 of the cholesterol limit that you should have in a day, 75% of the limit of your saturated fat, and if you have a lot of that, it can lead and worsen your heart disease. Also, it has a lot of sodium, which is then detrimental to those with heart disease as well, or can promote hypertension. So I'm gonna teach you how to make your healthier version of mac and cheese. Healthy doesn't mean it's boring, but it can be enjoyable as well. So here you have about 1.5 cups of your potato. Potato has a lot of potassium, more than your banana, so it can help lower your blood pressure as well. It has also lots of vitamin C, 30% of your needs for the day. Then you have your carrots, about the same amount. Carrots is one of the richest sources of vitamin A, good for your eyes, good for your skin, and it can help prevent cancer, and very low in fat. Then I just put a little, about a cup of the water that I boiled the potatoes and carrots in. Then I put also 1 large onion to give that sweet taste. Then we have here about 1 pound of your elbow macaroni. If you have wheat, if you can find wheat, it's better, but we didn't find one. Then we have 2 small calamansi, just to balance the flavor. Not you will not notice it, but it will give a little freshness to your mac and cheese. Then you have garlic, I have here 3 to 4 cloves. Then we have your cashews. Your cashews have healthy fats. They contain a lot of more of your monounsaturated fats, which is better for your heart, and it gives you a cheesy flavor. Also, for the cheesy flavor, we have 1/4 cup of your nutritional yeast. Unlike your salt and unlike your cheese, it's very low in sodium, just 25 milligrams for this 1/4 cup, compared to your salt, which 1 teaspoon is 2,300 milligrams of sodium, very high. And another one that we would put is your mushroom powder, very low in sodium as well, just 1 milligram for your 1 tablespoon. And we have, to substitute for your dairy, we have your, I like this, Vita Soy Milky, the milky flavor, very low in sugar, as well as it mimics the cow's milk flavor. And I'm gonna use 1 cup of that today. Then to top your mac and cheese, I have a little parsley, just to give that vibrant color and also fresh flavor, and a teaspoon of cayenne with paprika, just to give a pop of flavor, a little spicy at the top. Okay. So we're gonna start. So I'm gonna boil your pasta. So remember, when boiling pasta, put a lot of water. You don't want a little water because your pasta will stick. So the general rule is, for every pound of pasta, put 6 quarts or liters of water. Okay? So let's wait for it to boil. And meanwhile, I'm gonna blend your potatoes and carrots. Okay, so let's add the milk, because it needs more fluid. And we'll put your garlic and your calamansi. Okay. And your mushroom powder, nutritional yeast. We'll just adjust and taste as we... Sorry. Okay rin siya there. There na lang. So you have to wait for it to rapidly boil before you put it. Okay, so 10 minutes is now done. So we'll get our pasta. Make sure your pasta is still al dente, meaning there's a little resistance when you bite it. So that's how you properly cook your pasta. Okay. So when your pasta is cooked, do not put oil, do not rinse it in water, or else you will lose your flavor when you rinse it. Or if you put oil, the sauce's flavor will not stick quite well into your pasta. Okay. Okay, so now it's dry. Let's return it to the pot, and we'll put the sauce. Okay. now your cheesy sauce without all the fats and without the loads of sodium. You will mix it. Okay. So I think that's enough. You can save your sauce and use it for other, maybe for another batch, or if you want to use it for soup or anything. And after this, you can even bake it. Okay. So you can put squash if you like. You can experiment with whatever you would like to try. You can put breadcrumbs on the top and you can bake it if you like. So I'm gonna just put a little cayenne and paprika to give it a pop of red and a pop of flavor. And your parsley. Sorry. Okay, so here you have your vegan mac and cheese. Healthy, low in fat, low in sodium, and something that you can enjoy without guilt. So if you want to learn more how to cook these kinds of healthy foods that you can enjoy, at the same time not destroy your body, please message us at Plated Prescriptions. We'd love to help you through your health journey and wellness journey. So your health is your choice.